This is Red Moon Roleplaying.
Our characters find themselves in the Chunky Chicken, a rather popular diner off the Electric Mile in Junction City. Usually, your crew, when it has cause to get together, meets up in less auspicious surroundings. The Waffle Shack is always popular, but given that Z's last attendance there was accompanied by a rather unpleasant cousin by the name of Rohir, she saw fit to choose a different venue this time. The Chunky Chicken, for all of its common name and family fare, does actually serve some decent chicken. I mean, you'd hate to know how that chicken lives, but it's definitely plump and juicy, that's for damn sure. And right now, the three of you are sat around a table in a booth with a big basket of chicken, an assortment of gravies and sauces, some refillable Cokes. They don't do Pepsi at the Chunky Chicken, I mean, come on. And, well, it's a thriving afternoon. There's a new movie opening up down the street and all the kids are here, so you can barely talk for the noise, but sometimes there's something to be said for the anonymity of a crowd. When you're sat alone in a corner booth in a smoky nightclub, yeah, that sets a tone. It's the kind of tone that Silas enjoys. But right now, it almost feels important to look inconspicuous. And being in a crowded diner like this is just about the perfect way to do it. It was Z who brought you here, because Z has found some information out about the crimes of Victor Latendresse. She was doing some research when you parted last night and decided that the three of you would come together again this afternoon to share some of that intelligence. Can I offer the three of you any refills? Your server smiles. Oh no, I see you're still working on them. I'll be back in 10.
Thank you very much, I say, tipping my wide-brimmed hat to the waitress. I'm currently dressed in a sort of travel coat with a quite old wide-brimmed hat. Again, luckily for me, most of the time, the daylight only irritates me a little, and a good hat and coat are able to cover that up. Most of the time, at least.
Yes, it is true that the hungry in Curseborne are not immediately reduced to ash by the sun. They have more in common with Dracula than they do 1922's Nosferatu. And it is possible that the hungry can move around in daylight hours, albeit with some discomfort. This is why the wide-brimmed hat, the sunglasses, and the high collar is a good look for a hungry, if not a rather obvious one.
True, but I can get away with it. Besides, I like this hat. I've had it for about 20-30 years. Still good, in my opinion.
Silas, how are you getting on with your new body? Or should I say, Kenneth, how are you getting on with being Silas?
Kenneth has opted to retain Silas's old coat, but the old suit doesn't quite fit anymore for a variety of reasons. But mostly Silas has been fiddling with a pack of cigarettes because these lungs aren't quite used to the torture I put them through over the decades. And so every time I try to take a whiff of cigarette, it ends up with a hacking, nasty cough. So he's more in love with the idea of the cigarettes than he is actually smoking them. But he's also enjoying how his colleagues occasionally kind of keep glancing over at him just to make sure that he is who he says he is.
And Z, you arranged this meeting, and you're just about the only person at this table who's going to enjoy as much of this chunky chicken as you can devour. It is World Food Day, you might as well enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm sitting in one of those, the metal chairs. My knees are pulled up where they're connecting with the edge of the table, and I'm leaning back, and there's just this moment of satisfaction that, both Silas and Dr. Pace can see as my eyes sweep from one to the other, because enjoying their discomfort is very amusing to me. Like, we have this hungry that's sitting here with the sunglasses and the hat. The hat looks very charming on him, but the high collar, and it's just amusing watching the evolution of the things that he tries to tolerate the sunlight. He manages it well enough, but that discomfort is quietly amusing. And then as I turn and look at Silas, Silas, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around that. Kenneth is what we're going with now. That's very true. It's amusing watching him try to adjust to this new body, the subtle ways that he's unable to move or condition himself to the new muscle structure, this entire situation with the lungs. It's almost as if the universe gave me a win this morning, and that win is the discomfort of my friends. Also, we have action plans and things that we can do, so I am further motivated to closing the gap on all of the frustrations that I'm feeling with my family.
You have with you, Z, a small list. You always carry your notepad around with you. You brought it with you to the theatre when you were conducting your interviews about Victor L. even then. And you have it with you now. You've added a couple of names to it. And that's why you brought your companions here to this place to discuss them.
The server saunters away, and I just about missed the opportunity to put in another order of a 3-piece because the chicken here actually is really good. And I'll look at my companions, and so I have some additional information on the other survivors that were interviewed in the Netflix series. Also, I have some recommendations on where we should start next with our investigation. Would you gentlemen prefer to go over the action plans or the additional information first?
Whichever you prefer to go over first. You're the expert when it comes to the investigations. Well, you and Silas, I suppose. I'm going to just assume out loud, I say it quietly, that we're worried that the other survivors could now be potential targets, yes?
Yeah, following the release of the Netflix special, Sophie Pace quickly followed as well. So I do think we should review the other 2 victims, but I am curious, Doctor, what is the SPF level of sunscreen that you can actually tolerate sunlight in? Just what's that range?
I'll be honest, it doesn't really do much at all, even if it's very strong. If I'm in the light, I'm in the light. I suppose I use the store brand. Whatever it is, I don't know. They keep changing the brands. I remember once, that was a long time ago, that there only used to be like 2 or 3, and now there's like 20. It's very interesting.
Dr. Pages goes on for a good 5 minutes about the different qualities of sunscreen. There's something that has always amused you, Z, about how Monty never quite seems to get the joke. It's not that he lacks a sense of humour. He can tell jokes of his own. But it seems whenever someone else tries, he answers with information, with education. He likes to illuminate people, which I guess is ironic, given that he's a vampire.
It is indeed, but that also makes him endearing, doesn't it? I personally enjoy it, and then plus when you get people talking, you learn some of the most interesting things. So, gentlemen, the 2 victims that I have identified that, to my knowledge, are still alive, however, we should probably confirm that sooner rather than later, are a Donnet Breham. She is currently living the rural lifestyle outside of Junction City. And then there is Lee Fry, who resides here in Junction City. And get this, gentlemen, she is Junction City's police commissioner.
Ugh. That's not problematic at all.
That will be a bit of a stretch for us. Also, containment is going to be nigh impossible if the police commissioner dies. The survivor of Victor Latendresse dies shortly following the release of this Netflix special. We can keep Sophie quiet for the time being, but if Lee Fry falls, the frenzy is going to be difficult to navigate.
Do we know what order these episodes are going to be shown in? Well, sounds like our options are go out in the middle of nowhere and hope to God that there's not huge problems out there that are going to hunt us down and kill us, or try to convince the police chief that a serial killer from beyond the grave is coming out and killing people. That's great.
Now, Silas, you know, there are ways of doing this sort of thing. Who says it has to be a serial killer from beyond the grave when a opportunistic copycat sounds a lot more reasonable to the mortal mind?
Oh, I snap my fingers and point. I like that idea.
That's fair, but still, points at the three of us. I don't know if this group of people is exactly going to be the right combination to convince the police chief of anything.
No, don't you have some wiles and ways, Silas? You normally do.
Nah, I left them in my other body.
Oh. Well, Kenneth had quite a few skills. Do you not get anything from them? I've always found it fascinating. Is there not something still inside poor Kenneth that you can scoop out? Not literally, I mean.
Do you get smarter when you put your hat on?
Sorry to interrupt, everybody. I can see you're really deep in conversation. Your server's back over with a smile and a harassed look on his young face. It is a busy afternoon shift. Just wondering, do you need anything else for the table, or is it time for paying up?
I think she wants some more dead bird carcasses.
He stares at you blankly from a... Oh, chicken. He looks at Z. Another 3-piece then?
A 3-piece all dark would be spectacular, thank you.
Mild, medium, or spicy as hell?
Oh, and I just flash him a smile that pulls a little bit too far at the corners, and it's that indication, almost borderline flirtatious, but almost predation. It's like, you know what I want. Just bring it here, please.
Swimming in spice then? And I'll make sure you've got some free refills.
Yes, thank you. It's absolutely delicious, I say, attempting to, of course, for appearances, take a small piece and, well, bite into it and try and eat it.
Well, there's a certain juiciness to it, Monty. There's a certain flavour. It's not like you can't taste things. It's just that there is absolutely no benefit to you from consuming it. But, nevertheless, yeah, you can appreciate a decent piece of chicken from one angle anyway.
Is it actually a decent piece of chicken?
Yeah.
Well, that maybe surprises me, and I'll have a second bite. No, I'm not lying, it actually is not the worst.
I'm learning so much today.
There's the interaction you're having with each other right now, and the fact that you can pretty much continue to have it while a server is hovering over you, speaks to the fact that there is no grand conspiracy. There is no veil between you and the mundanes, the people who are not accursed. The fact is, he was standing there, he could hear the kinds of things you were saying, and it probably sounded no different than people speaking about their favourite video game. It sounds like a plot. It sounds like the synopsis of a TV show. You could pretty much be brazen. Well, to a degree. When you start talking about addressing a police commissioner, well, that is a very different kettle of fish. Silas is quite right. Getting close to someone like that, you would need some high-placed friends.
It doesn't mean I don't have some contacts, but I have to get used to this face. And that might be a challenge.
We'll bridge the gaps. We always do.
I do have a DA who owes me some favors.
Good. Okay, gentlemen, that's the information. The recommendations that I have for action plans going forward is going to be connecting with both of the victims, obviously. If nothing else other than to verify that they are still alive and not in a dumpster somewhere. I really do believe that we should go back and reinvestigate the scene where Sophie's body was pulled. We may be able to pull some additional intel from there.
I'll go look into the scene of the crime. That seems most of my skill set, I suppose.
Sounds logical to me, and I can accompany you on some house visits. I also maybe have some people I want to talk to. We'll see if they have anything they can give me.
Good. Do either of you see any value in contacting the showrunner, producer, director of the Netflix series?
Tricky. On one hand, maybe they are considered a target themselves. On the other, they might not be involved at all, and getting them involved may lead to complications. I'm not entirely sure.
Same.
Yeah, I'm thinking save as a plan B.
Okay. Leads run dry, we'll start scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Very good. So you finish up at the Chunky Chicken. making sure that you get the rest wrapped up to go for UZ. And drain those free refills. I mean, they're advertised as free, but you had to pay $9 for a cup. And then you're headed out. So you tell me, crew, who among you is heading to the alley where the body was found? I know Silas is headed there. Is anyone accompanying?
I don't think I will. I'm going to attempt to make a connection with my contacts first, and then after that head with Z to whichever one of the targets she deems appropriate to visit first.
I agree. I think that's going to be our best course of action.
Okay, well, let's start with you then, Eddy.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't all that far from the Chunky Chicken. It's easy to actually get a little freaked out, despite your venerable years. How close all these happy families were to the scene of an absolute butchery of a crime. You only need to walk down the street about 4 blocks. Yeah, you've got to take a couple of twists and turns in an alley, but it's always a sobering reminder of how easy it is to dispose of a body in a city like this. Junction City isn't massive. This isn't New York. It isn't Chicago. It's, hell, not even Seattle. But it has a lot of nooks and crannies. It has a lot of hidey holes that sometimes work to your benefit and sometimes just possess the kind of things that you really don't want to be dealing with. In this case, as you reach the alley, well, it's quite clear something was here, mainly by the police tape. There's no officer on duty. Maybe they've already stopped asking questions of people passing by. They probably already questioned the business owners around here. Did you see anything? Do you have any cameras that might have recorded someone passing in this way or that? The police tape wrapped around the dumpster, that's not going to do much. The dumpster itself is still open to the elements. They clearly didn't think they were going to find anything of use in there. Or maybe something just told them to walk away.
Do I feel any kind of strange supernatural components or elements as I start to explore the area?
I'm not going to make you roll for that, Eddy. It's a good question. There is, if it isn't too rote a turn of phrase, a chill in the air.
Mm-hmm.
The whole place feels ghastly in the sense that there's a unnatural quality to the atmosphere here that even though you have no need to breathe and yet you still insist on filling Kenneth's lungs with smoke, it makes you choke up a little. Not just in the sense of struggling to breathe, but your eyes water. Like a wave of emotion floods over you. It's brief, but it's potent.
So Silas starts pacing around the alley, and he's a bit distraught. Although he blew it off as a joke, Z seemed to kind of see through him and notice that his movements aren't quite as smooth as he would like, and Kenneth's personality does seem to be popping up in strange things. His more Midwestern accent seems to be more dominant than Silas's original New York accent, and that's concerning him. But he tries to push that all to the side and try to get into the mind of someone like Letandres. He looks over the scene and tries to think of how this could have happened, maybe even why. Because as much as he doesn't like to think of being connected to someone like him, at the same time, they're both Furies. They're both pushed by their emotions. And so, on some level, Silas doesn't understand that, even to a degree empathizes with that.
You observe the alley, looking for any signs, as you say, anything that might indicate emotional struggle. Can I ask you to make we'll go for Enigmas and Cunning, please.
And then I will throw in my 2 curse dice that I earned off the blood of innocence.
Excellent. And I am going to add a minor complication here.
Mm-hmm.
That is, should there be evidence? So this complication is almost what you might call temporal. Should there be evidence, if you don't buy off the complication, you will contaminate it with your actions.
Considering I rolled 0 hits, that makes things awkward.
That is a cruel failure.
I do have an edge that's relevant, but I want to wait and hear what happens first before I decide if I want to use that.
It's that emotional energy in the place. It's like a fever that as you're pacing back and forth, you've been in places like this before. How many crime scenes have you seen in your life? You should be numb to this kind of thing by now. Is it because you're in this ill-fitting body? How many other dead just hop from body to body without a care, and yet for some reason it's awkward for you? It actually feels like your skin beneath your skin itches, and every single step you're taking is irritating you more and more, and you are casting left and right. Why isn't there something? This should be simple. Something like you, a fury like you, hell, practically a cousin. You should be able to get in the head of a creature like that, and yet right now you feel utterly distant, absolutely furious, but utterly distant from the mindset that could create a monster like Victor Latendresse, and it is infuriating. It is enraging. And you just punch the side of the dumpster in abject frustration, and it hurts. The pain that rockets through Kenneth's fist, you've actually broken your hand. You hit it so hard. You have never lost control in such a isolated, unprovoked environment before. How much this is atmosphere, how much of this is you. But the pain really is quite agonizing. And to that end, Eddy, status effect style, thank you. I see you've just added the injury to your health track. Watching this in real time, you also have the agonized or agony status effect imposed to you because your hand is a searing mass of pain. The only positive that comes from this, and it is pretty fucking minute, is that as you pull your hand away, you clutch it very delicately in your left. It looks to you like there's dots of, you think, yeah, there's definitely blood there on the side of that dumpster. It's old blood, it's dried. It's not like you went up and smeared it, you're now feeling desperate. It's not like you walked up to it with a cloth and started wiping it off, but when you just struck it, those flakes, they've fallen into a puddle by your feet. You're not sure how useful that would be. You're not sure anyone would be able to tell whose DNA was in that, but what a fuck up, Silas. Hey, you were right, man, down there.
Look around.
There's a figure huddled, boxes on one side, blankets on the other, leaning forward, just farther down the alley, almost out of sight. I said, are you alright, man, down there? I heard you hit something. Are you on something or something? Do you need help? I know a good place you can go if you need help.
I need a lot of help, but I don't think it's the kind you can offer. Information, though, would be useful.
If you're one of those cops...
Do I look like a cop? Come on.
I know, I sometimes see cops hiding things they shouldn't, you know? You can see this guy is, well, you could mistake him for one of the people you beat the shit out of the night before. He is a rough sleeper, a vagrant, someone who would often go unnoticed by the majority of the populace, but right now, you've got a point of focus that does actually give you some benefit.
So Silas kind of takes an unnecessary breath and starts to actually push Kenneth aback, out of his head a little bit, and then goes, "No, I ain't a cop. I'm just looking for some information about the broad that was dumped here a while back. She's a friend of a friend's. I'm just trying to find out all the information before I go back to him and tell him what happened to her. You know what I'm saying?"
Broad. I don't think I've heard a woman referred to as a broad since, what, Double Indemnity?
Yeah. Picked it up from my granddad. You know how it is. All the slang sticks with you.
Yeah, some sad shit. That body that ended up in there.
Did you see anything? Did you hear anything?
Oh, this is my spot, man. I mean, I'm down here most every day. Don't sleep down here at night. Things get spooky at night, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've heard.
There's a shelter just down the way. That's where I spend the night. But I like to. This place is, or down here is my own. I don't go up that end of the alley so much. There's some real bad vibes there, you know. Yeah, well. Anyway, to answer your question, though, like, you know, you asked me, did I see anything? Question is, did I hear anything? Because when there's something going on, you know, people come into this alley to have fights, shoot up to fuck. People come into this alley for all kinds of things, and I keep myself to myself. I close my eyes. I wait for them to go away, but I can't close my ears, you know. I hear it all.
What'd you hear then?
There was a woman. She was scared. Not the first time. Women sometimes duck down here if there's someone following them down the street, you know.
Yeah.
It's not a bad place. I look after people who come down here sometimes. Like when you made that racket, so I asked what's going on. I asked her, I said, "Hey, you okay down there?" I don't like to get involved. I don't want to get myself in trouble, but I don't want to see anyone hurt, hear anyone hurt. And I asked, I said, "You okay?" Because she was crying, you know, heaving sobs. It's like I could hear the spluttering of the snot and the tears. And she didn't answer. She was just saying, "No, no, no, no. No, 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 no." Then I heard the scrape of, I guess, her on the metal, the dumpster. I don't know, like she was either being dragged along it or climbing onto it. I guess she must have been climbing in because that's where they found her, right?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Then I heard all that. No, not. That's what she was saying. Not. I don't know why. Maybe she was on something. Maybe. You'd have to read the papers. They always publish that kind of thing, you know. When they say when someone died in a place like this, they never like to say what was good about the person. They say they was on drugs, or they had a criminal wreck, or they done this or that. She sounded like she was high as a kite. Maybe that was a good thing, because then I heard the gun. Blam! One shot.
Just the one?
Well, just the one, man. I just booked it then. Got the fuck out of town. Well, out of my alley, because I knew the cops would come next, and I don't want to get hauled in. I've already got shit on me. I didn't do anyone any harm. I don't want to get in any trouble.
No, I understand that. And you said it was just her walking here. You didn't just one, set of footsteps. No, you didn't hear nobody else when she was saying nothing like that.
I think there was somebody. I guess there was somebody else. I don't know. It was like she was having a conversation, but it was one-sided. Like it was in her head. I didn't hear the voice of the other person speaking. sure I didn't. She just kept saying, not. And then the gunshot. Like I said, some sad shit. Broad daylight, too. I mean, down here between all the buildings and shit, you can't hear a gunshot for the traffic on the street and all the bricks surrounding it. It's like a cocoon, man, but I knew someone would find her eventually.
Yeah, well, that happened.
Well, you a friend of hers or something?
A friend of a friend's. You know how it is.
He still hasn't shifted from his position as a point of reference. He still hasn't even really looked at you. He leaned forward a little, but he's not making eye contact.
Could you do me another favor? And I got, I don't want to impose too much on you, but looks like punching that dumpster took a bit more out of me than I expected. I think I need to sit down here and take a minute. Do you mind if I sit down here and just...
Hey, be my guest, man. Junction City's a free country or something. You could sit with me. It's fine. Just, yeah, no, that's fine by me. I'm good. So why, if I can ask, and it's fine if I can, but why are you so angry, man? What did you know her? Was she a friend of yours?
Yeah, well, no, I didn't know her, but kind of stuff gets me pissed off, you know what I'm saying? Like you said, don't like to see people getting hurt. I don't like to see people getting hurt. And difference is sometimes I feel like I gotta do something about it, you know?
Lots of injustice in the city, man, there is. It's all over the place. I mean, look at me. I used to be somebody, I guess. Norm. Job, house, family. At least I got this alley now. For a while I didn't even have that.
No, everybody needs something.
Yeah, sit yourself down. I got nothing for you to eat or drink. But if you've got any cash on you, it'll go a long way with me, you know what I'm saying? I can
tell you
do
what.
a lot with $10.
I have 2 lots of resources, so Stylus is gonna take out the pack of cigarettes and slide a 20 into the plastic wrap around it, and says, "Hey, if you wanna take care of these cigarettes for me, it looks like I gotta start quitting."
Yeah, that shit will be bad for you, man. I mean, there's lots of people like me who smoke that kind of shit. The little money we have, we put it into those cartons and it goes up in smoke, you know what I'm saying? But me, I've never got onto that habit. I mean, I smoke. Don't get me wrong, I just don't smoke that kind of shit.
Well, you know what? I'm sure you got friends who can...
I will. I'll sell these on, trade them on. I'll find a good use for them. Yeah. Get me?
I'm gonna lean back here and then take a few Z's. Back in a minute.
Yeah, man, I'll watch out for you.
Silas slips out of his body, his new body, which is fine. It just didn't feel right anyway. But he's gonna take a look around in his incorporeal state, try to see if that gives him a different perspective on things.
All right. Well, why don't you tell me what you are looking for, Eddy?
So the current theory is that she was possessed into taking these actions. Seems like there was nobody else there. She's having a conversation with somebody else. That someone else may have been in her head, and certainly Silas's own kind of conflict with a dead man is certainly kind of getting him onto that track. So he's going to look for some of the classic manifestations, ectoplasm, other kind of residue, but also since this was possibly a fury, he wants to see if there's any kind of lingering emotional resonance floating around the space, because the one thing to get like, well, someone was angry here and someone was sad here, someone was hungry here, but if this was a furious possibility that magic was involved, there may have been a slightly more unnatural emotional components still lingering around.
Well, I'm not going to make you roll for the emotional component because it is most certainly here. It isn't just rage. There is a confluence of heated emotion. Someone with barely any control over themselves was here and expelled some of that energy.
Mm-hmm.
So whether your theory is correct or not regarding this being a possession case, it's this could certainly point you in the direction of at least one of the dead being involved, and probably a fury, as you're predicting. In terms of ectoplasm, can I ask you to make an esoterica plus intellect roll, Eddy?
Much better. That's 2 hits. And they're both on my curse dice.
You linger in the alley for a while, examining every surface, spending some time in the dumpster, as inhospitable as that sounds, sometimes being where the body was. It can yield results. What you find is infinitely more troubling than ectoplasm. It goes beyond your range of expertise, but you have heard tell of this kind of thing. It's actually on some of the brickwork surrounding the dumpster. Almost a perfect, well, difficult to say whether it's a square, because of course it's open sky above the alley, but the brickwork to your left, the brickwork to your right, the ground, and even a line that cuts pretty much through the dumpster as well. It's as if it's been seared as if by an intense heat. The sear mark, it varies from 1 inch wide to almost a foot in places, but the line itself is fairly clear. What you're looking at, you think, is something interstitial. Something that has bled through from another world into this one, or vice versa. It's not any kind of categorical answer for what has happened, but it is telling you that there is more at play here in terms of the supernatural stakes than simply a murderous fury going about the place.
Alright. Now that I have a successful investigation roll, I would like to, because I have the logical leap edge, I would like to spend a momentum to see if I can get another lead off of this, if there is any other lead I can get out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a very solid lead you can take from this. There is no gun. I mean, you may not think that Monty Pages is the most up-to-date of doctors, but if he believes she took her own life with a shotgun to the chest, there should have been a shotgun by the body, even in her hands still. But apparently when she was found, there was no gun.
But the homeless person certainly heard a gun.
He did indeed. So he heard a gun. Monty says there was a gun in terms of cause of death. So where is the gun?
Over Chekhov's fireplace. Okay. So Silas logs all that in his head. Thinks it's probably enough to start putting some clues together, but it's probably good to reconnect with his friends. So he eases back into his body, reluctant at first because the pain of the hand is still there, and he's uncomfortable with that. And so thinks maybe I should actually, before I do that, go to a pharmacy or a bar, or maybe one and then the other, try to take care of this pain.
So you return to the form of Kenneth. You get some good sleep there, my friend.
Yeah, that was a lot better, thank you.
Yeah. Not many people come down here want to sleep unless they're in a, position like me. You don't look like you're without a home.
You might say I just had to relocate.
Yeah, I hope you don't mind. I took a good look at you while you were out, just to make sure you weren't on something. You sleep like the dead, man. You could barely even see your chest rising. Worried there for a minute.
Well, now you know why I asked if I could inconvenience you, because I'm a deep sleeper. But
hey, I'm here for you, man. Listen, if you ever want something, you want to come back here, want to share some time, give me some more cigarettes or some more cash, just look for me, okay?
yeah, sure. What was your name again?
Be far. They call me Jenga Dance, is what they call me.
Jenga Dance. All right, cool. Yeah, I'll keep you in mind. Thanks so much.
You got it, chum. Now we will visit our other characters. First and foremost, Monty Pages, you were going to be getting in touch with your contacts. Who was it you were looking into getting in touch with?
Yes, I'm hoping to contact an associate of mine, a superior in many ways, a fellow hungry, specifically a fellow hungry of my particular family, or clan, or grouping. It's quite funny what the actual definitions are. A Hirono Tsukioka. You see, I'm very curious about this situation. On one hand, hunting down an individual in itself isn't that tricky, but there's something very off about this one. I'm especially interested in what happened at the autopsy. It's very unusual, in my opinion, for someone who has just recently passed away to suddenly manifest at such a level of power. It was almost as if I summoned them directly, which I did not. It was irritating. It caused a scene. It caused a death. And it's very unusual. Yes, there's something about this Victor fellow that seems a little off, even if they are, most likely, one of the dead. There's something very unusual about this, so I'm seeking out the advice of someone who maybe is a little more experienced than even I when it comes to matters of esoterica and the occult. Maybe they've sensed something. Maybe the Gaki in the city have sensed something I'm unaware of. I'd like to get their advice and opinion if I can.
Well, Hirono Tsukioka is a business owner, and she makes her business, well, she's a madam, but not a madam in the traditional sense. She's the madam of a gym, and she has an entire stable of boxers to her name. And so this is very much out of your usual bailiwick, shall we say, Monty, to enter a space where there's so many physically fit bodies, either punching a bag, dancing around the ring, knocking 7 bells out of each other. Hirono isn't a trainer. She is essentially a sponsor. And she has an office there that overlooks the ring and everything that's going on. She's always said there's something about vitality that just enthralls her. And so when she hears that you are coming, she invites you to ascend directly and watch over the boxing with her. It's only amateur stuff. It's only training. She opens a fridge. Have you had a drink recently, Monty?
If you count Pepsi as a drink, I suppose I have had some.
I do not. I've got something more to your tastes, I think, and she passes you a bottle that is such a dark red that it can only be one thing. Of course, the Gaki can subsist off of blood until their damnation. It compels them to take something a little rarer. Special mixture. You'll have to ignore the, well, little additive flavour, but it keeps it from congealing.
Oh, well, you know as well as anyone that I'm very aware of what can happen if you let things congeal. Thank you so much. Thank you. It looks delightful, and I will take a sip. Yes, it is less awful to simply partake of the lifeblood rather than the direct spiritual connection that we sometimes need.
Don't get me wrong, Monty. I am delighted that you've come all the way out here. I mean, when was the last time you were on this side of town? at Gold's Gym, but I do wish to ask... This isn't just a social call, is it?
I'm afraid not. I'm hoping you can provide some mental assistance with something. Nothing physical, hopefully.
Oh, test me. Why not? It's so rare that you have a need to ask me for anything of an intellectual pursuit.
Well, you know how it is, dear. I fully acknowledge that while I have had some time to learn the field of medicine, I don't have as much experience by a long shot as you do when it actually comes to matters of, well, what we eat. Specifically, what we eat.
She smiles, she bares her teeth, they look like needles in her mouth. And there is no affection in that smile, as her eyes narrow. Don't call me dear. Call me auntie, because that is what I am.
Yes, auntie, of course, auntie. And I bow my head. It's always a shame. It's the problem with some of my family. You try and just be nice and polite and jovial, and they always get so up on social etiquette. Even the Gaki. But it is how it is. I meant no disrespect. You know me, barely thinking. Auntie.
Let's get to it then, shall we? What is it you wish to know?
I've encountered a rather unusual phenomena. Unusual for me, at least. A recent cadaver came into my care very recently.
She puts a finger up to stop you, opens a window in her office, and calls out to the ring. Stop with the fucking body blows and go for the knockout punch! You're not dancing with each other, you're trying to kill each other! And she closes the window again. Sorry, do continue.
Of course. Unruly masses, eh? Yes, this cadaver. Dead in less than 24 hours, practically.
Sounds appetizing.
They were. But that's the unusual thing. The manner of their death is one thing. But however they were killed, the after effects led to a full spectral manifestation with literally all I did was begin a standard autopsy. I didn't even mutter an arcane word. And they were able to fully manifest and cause an awful lot of problems. They were very, very unhappy. I had to deal with them.
Did you bind them?
No, I didn't have
Did you
time.
interrogate them?
Again, briefly. It was all so sudden and violent, I hadn't even begun a summoning practice. I was caught off guard.
So they are free in the city?
No, they no longer exist. I had to eat them, you know.
You had to eat them?
Well, they were trying to murder me. They'd already murdered someone else. That's all dealt with. But you know how it is. I was caught off by surprise. The hunger, I couldn't stop myself.
She gives you that grin again. Ah, there it is. There it is, Monty. Darling. You couldn't help yourself. So many of us have been in that same situation. I have. There's no shame in it, not really. It's disappointing. You've been around for quite a long time. You should know better. But if this spirit was stronger than you anticipated, then, well, these things do happen. What you're wanting to know, then, is why would this phantasm be as potent as it was?
Yes. You see, I have reason to believe, not proven just yet, that the killer was themselves one of the dead.
Ah. Interesting. Very interesting. Yes. I see. Well, it's possible. And she takes a drink. Sucks it in through a straw. Wipes her lips. Has no need to, but does it anyway. It is quite possible that when someone accursed, or when someone dies via means magical, that their remains can be cursed with it. You've heard of the flesh-eating zombie incident that occurred in the city all not that long ago?
Yes, actually. Quite an interesting turn of events.
Yeah. Well, the fact of the matter is that that is all because one of the accursed was responsible for the deaths that ensued, and often when one of us commits some kind of fatal flaw like that, there are repercussions. Damnations do spread like a virus at times. So you're probably right. She was probably killed by one of us, and came back furious as a result.
Interesting.
Of course, there is another possibility, and this is one I don't suggest voicing outside of this room.
Of course, you know me, I do understand discretion.
Now her smile is genuine, but it's quite sick and twisted. She is taking pleasure from this, but you know that whatever she's about to say isn't going to be a benefit to you. It is quite possible that she was herself accursed, and yet just had not manifested yet. Maybe, given enough time, she would have come back as one of the dead, having died, and process interrupted, acted in a bestial manner that could only be subdued with complete annihilation, as you did. It could be that you cut off a dead in the making.
That certainly is a possibility, isn't it? I say, and I frown. Out of interest, considering my family's affliction in particular, what is our relationship with the dead in general? Is there a little bit of amnosity, considering that we are vampires who literally sometimes eat spirits?
Well, it really depends on the individual Gaki and the dead in the city in question. Typically, in terms of diplomacy, the Gaki will arrange that they will consume phantasms that cause problems for the dead, and leave the dead themselves well alone. It's almost like the difference between saying, well, I'll eat something that isn't sentient, but I'll leave the thinkers alone. And I guess the difference between eating a joint of lamb and eating a dog's leg. Whether that is an accurate description or not is certainly how a lot of Gaki and dead will put it, because let's be clear, there's no getting rid of either of you, so you have to find a way of working and living together, as it were. So yeah, animosities can exist and are frequent because, yeah, if a Gaki gets hungry enough and there are no spirits on which to feed, sometimes the closest possible morsel is one of the dead. But similarly, these kinds of political quandaries can arise where one of the dead possesses a sorcerer, for example, and the sorcerer will not like that one bit. Or a primal may stake out some territory, may maul someone who happens to be connected to an outcast. These things happen, but they aren't good. They are not good. Not in the slightest.
Well, if that were to be the case, it would be deeply regretful, but as I said, not only was my own person in danger, and I paused for a moment before deciding at the end of the day if Hirono really wants to find out. She'd find out somehow. And they'd already taken a mortal life. Granted, perhaps accidentally, but still. I had to do what I had to do. If I had time to do a proper binding ritual, I would have, but at the time I was in the realm of mortals conducting a normal autopsy, not expecting such a strong physical manifestation. I have a theory it was because the manner of her death was extremely, extremely violent, and possibly, yes, some sort of magical affliction.
Hirono shrugs as your thoughts meander here and there. Her attention seems to be more on the boxing now, but she does turn back to you and say, whatever the case, I think you need to find the person that killed her. If she was one of us, well, let's just say you may be able to get it back into the good books let me put it another way. If she was dead, for example, and you cut her off in her growth period, I think people are going to be more concerned about who killed her, who truncated her life, and bring that person to justice, and we might be back to square one in the diplomacy stakes. Don't do that. Someone finds out that you've eaten one of their cousins. We could have an entire situation on our hands, couldn't we?
I stand up and for the first time do act maybe a little more impudent than I should, as I say quite quickly. Have you ever known me, Auntie, to leave problems to others? I am of course handling it personally. It's my pleasure. I am going to sort the problem out before there are other problems. Because it's very likely, in my estimate, that this individual is going to do it again. So yes, I'm going to personally put a stop to it.
Delightful. Do you still hang around with that 8 hands, that Ocho Z, I think her name was?
From time to time.
Excellent. Okay, well, given that you have just pulled on my time, I would like for you to pull on hers on my behalf. I'm sure she will be delighted. I have a boxing match coming up this weekend. She writes culture pieces. I know there's some people who don't consider boxing culture, but I do. I want a good piece written about our new lightweight coming into Junction City. He's going to be the champion one day, you mark my words.
I always know better at this point to question a request like that. And to be fair, it's not even a terribly large one. Of course, Auntie, I'll see to that as soon as I can.
She nods at you again with a smile, opens the window, isn't even checking what's going on out there, but just shrieks out, "Kill! Kill!"
You have listened to an episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we play the scenario Suffer My Sins for Curseborne, which is published by Onyx Path Publishing. Curseborne is on Kickstarter right now, and you can find a link in the show notes. Story guide was Matthew Dawkins, and we were also joined by Bridgett Jeffries and Eddy Webb. The music was created by Atrium Carceri and was used with permission from their label, Cryochamber. Please check out cryochamber.bandcamp.com or their YouTube channel for more of their lovely dark ambient. We would love to give massive thanks to our champions of the Red Moon, Martin Heuschober, Simon Cooper, David, Julia, Camilla, Bob Lange, Cameron, Graham Barey, Doug Thomson, Lily, Mike Parker, and Maciej for their generous support. And we would of course also like to thank all of our other patrons. Without your support, the show would not be possible. If you want to support our work, please check us out on Patreon. You can get access to our Call of Cthulhu bonus campaign, Shadows of Yog-Sothoth, with Matthew as our keeper, as well as bonus campaigns for Cult of Divinity Lost and Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. On top of that, we also offer early and raw access to all of our recordings. And you can also hear your name read on the show as a champion of the Red Moon. Finally, you could also play some Cult with us. Most importantly, that support is what keeps the show going, so do check us out there. Thank you again for listening, and remember that the world is cursed.